sooner you get your cups of coffee. Should we get going? I've had some really good advice to help me with this course. Anton says, watch with all these things that your trousers don't fall down. So I'll do my very best. Okay, curriculum map. If you've got a curriculum map, all it means is you know what you want, what you're expecting your students to learn, and when, across your whole program. So it sounds simple, but what I'm going to do now is talk to you across 4 slides or so and explain the kind of fundamental idea behind curriculum mapping. And then I'm going to stop and ask you why that is, if not impossible, or silly. That's a really, really difficult thing to do across the whole big comp. And then I'm going to explain, well, what are we going to do by way of a compromise in the business school to get a curriculum map that helps us enhance our programs and better deliver the graduate profiles. And then I'm going to highlight 3 points about, well, how do we make our learning transparent so we can map it? So you can't see it, you can't map it. How do we pitch things at the right level? And then, crikey, now we know what we're supposed to teach. How are we going to teach this stuff? Because it's all a little bit new. So our graduates are tremendously capable. They can do critical thinking, they're good citizens, they can communicate, they can collaborate, they can do a tremendous amount. And although just being at university and being 21 instead of 18 is going to make a difference, the main vehicle for developing these attributes and capabilities is our courses. And if you think of each of these blue boxes as one of our courses, early on we'll be treating them as novices and introducing basic fundamental concepts. And then we'll think of them as novice plus. And then perhaps in the second year they'll be developing, and by the third year they'll be performing at graduate level. So that's really quite simple. And if we were designing a curriculum and just thinking about knowledge, we could really do that, probably quite easily. But of course, our courses are already in place, and we've got a history of working rather by ourselves and making our courses internally quite consistent. But I don't know what you do or you do or you do. I don't know what goes on with my students before they come to me, and probably I'm not very well aware of what happens afterwards. So how am I going to get this seamless progressive development? And then of course, we're not just thinking of the concepts and the knowledge. We've got 6 whole themes that we think we can take our graduates through. And each of these themes is in itself really complex. So, for instance, communication and engagement. There's written communication, there's oral communication, there's using technologies, there's engaging with others and collaborating. So not only does each of these themes need cycles of introduction, teaching, practice, assessments that take the students right through from being a novice to a graduate, they've all got multiple components. And a good map would tell me where all these components are being developed, in which course and how. And it all adds up to my graduate. And here's somebody's degree, or here's a degree. These students have no choice. So they all come in. I've got 24 opportunities to get all of those themes developed. And all of those things to get to graduate level, you need to be working on them progressively over 3 years. You can't just drop one course on ethics and hope that your students all become ethical like magic. Okay. So how's that difficult in the BCom? What makes it hard to map programs? There's heaps of reasons. Could you just shout them out? I have a pen. Go for it, Emma.
Elective courses.
Yeah.
So different pathways through.
They don't all do the same course. Heaps of choice. What else? Why can't I map my programs?
Teachers change from one semester to the next?
It doesn't stay still. Teachers change. Course outline might stay the same.
Sometimes.
So the course outlines might not be accurate. What else makes it hard to map?
It's possible that what we think we teach is not what the students are learning.
Good.
Measurement challenges.
Measurement. Do you want to say some more?
How can we tell about these things? Which course contributes what?
Measurement's really hard, isn't it? And I can measure how high they can jump, but how can I measure how ethical they are? Come on, Sue.
Might not be stated clearly enough, like how much and
That's
exactly what
right.
it is.
Sometimes here there's an element of mystery.
Except for the disciplinary knowledge, for the rest of the criteria, we might just always teaching the basic skills across all the courses without seeing the program.
Yeah. It's about the levels. Might just be doing the basics. Again and again, because I don't know what he taught, what he taught, what he taught.
Sometimes it overlaps, so you've got something taught at stage 1 and stage 2 and it's being repeated, or it's a bit different, or it's contrasting, or,
There's duplications. Yeah. There's practice, which is good, and then there's duplications, which...
all conflicting. You've told one thing and one thing, and then stage 2 it's turned on its head.
Just behind you, Andrew.
Students come with different levels of knowledge, and so we adjust to that, but different levels of capabilities is way more difficult. Like how to teach to students at different levels of capability.
So we might flex to our cohorts, which is good.
And you might get pushback from students who don't see it as core or relevant to what you're doing. They're there to access the knowledge, and that's it.
In oversight, it's difficult for a teaching staff, depending on your role, to have the authority to actually look beyond your course and look at what other courses are doing.
Okay, so we all live in our little boxes. Yeah? And, what authority?
There's also an implication that capability development is linear, where if its development is not a linear process, so trying to impose a linear framework on an inherently non-linear developmental process is problematic.
It's also integrated, isn't it? So when you go to work, you don't do solution seeking on Tuesday, communicate with people on Wednesday, and it's all in concert. Is that enough? Here's some maps. The thing that always strikes me with these curriculum maps is when the map becomes more complicated than the terrain you're seeking to map, you should throw your map away. And that's what a lot of these do. they soak up lots of admin time, and the minute someone sneezes, the whole thing's gone, and you have to kind of, like it's butterfly flopping, it rocks through everywhere. And so I think maps should be decision tools, really, to help the academics who know what they're doing make better decisions, to visualise what's going on and inform their work. So that means the bottom one isn't so good. This one over here is a concept map, which is kind of good, maybe if you're learning maths and you know what the concepts are. But get 4 professors from management together and ask them what the concepts are. How many concepts, So that doesn't work for us quite. This one with the red triangles is a bit like a heat map. And what they've got is for each course, assuming all the students do the same course, and for each capability, they've looked to see if it's there, whether it's role modelled, whether it's taught, whether it's assessed, and you get like a heat map. What it doesn't tell you is if within, say, teamwork, they've learnt about roles in that course, and 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 roles in that. They think they've done really well on collaboration. But actually they've done the same thing 6 times, whereas in another programme they've done roles, and then they've done turn-taking, and then they've done body language, and then they've done negotiation, and then they've done a bit of a presentation. That's totally different. But the map would be the same. So when we've explored these, and my colleague Nabil has spent months looking at these blasted things, we haven't found anything that really met our needs. So what we're going with is a super high level map, which you've got a copy of. And if you're teaching the business school, you might just gently have a little look at and see how your course relates to these capabilities. So you can produce a pretty coarse, high-level map of how you're contributing to the 6 themes and 6 capabilities. But that's not enough. That's like a heat map look. And I have taken a number of course outlines and categorised them using this tool. And we have heaps of stuff on knowledge, heaps and heaps and heaps and heaps. Sometimes every learning outcome in a course is knowledge, and as you go down, we have less and less and less and less and less. So, but that may not be right, because sometimes there's things going on in courses, as we sit here, that are part of the mystery and magic of learning and not captured. So that's the first thing we're going to do, to get a really course map. And then what we're going to do is think about the majors. Because one of the problems in the BCom is not just that people take different courses, they pursue different majors. And what critical thinking looks like in one major isn't the same as the other. And their solution-seeking abilities are not the same and can't be measured in the same way. So our approach is going to be major focus, and within each major we might be asking, well, what should our graduates look like? What's a graduate in marketing look like? How do these capabilities at graduate level manifest in a marketing graduate? And then through conversations work back, well, if that's how they look like at 300 level, how do we prepare them for that at 200 and 100 level? And if we do any more detail mapping using any of these kind of tools that I showed you a minute ago, it will be only to serve the conversations that academics are having in departments. So it will be flexible. Might do it a little bit differently in one department to another, but we're hoping that through this we'll get a shared understanding, because I think the most important thing is not an accurate map down there, but a shared understanding between the academics teaching in the programme about what they're trying to achieve and who's achieving it.
Have you found along the way, or are you finding that actually quite a few of the learning outcomes aren't actually very good match with the content, so you also at the same time sort of revising those or not really, you haven't found that to be the case?
Have you see my next slide?
No, sorry.
I think it's the next one. Yep. Any questions on this? One of the things we need to do is perhaps address this mystery and make more explicit how each course contributes to the graduate profile. And so there's a new template for course outlines finding its way towards you quite shortly. But the biggest change is going to be in expressing the learning outcomes. And what we find at the moment is the learning outcomes are there, but I can have a 100 level course, a 200 level course, and a 300 level course, and the learning outcome is all solves complex problems. Oh, I have no idea where the level is or what aspect of problem solving is being taught or practiced. So we're going to be asking folk to be more precise on what they're teaching. And that'll help our teachers and our students know what's gone before and what's coming after. And we're also going to be asking people to relate their learning outcomes to the program level capabilities, which will make mapping a lot easier, and students will be better able to choose the courses that they need or avoid the ones they hate. That's the downside of this. If you look in the literature, it seems that people think, oh, I know what I need to teach. I know what graduates need. It's communication, it's problem solving, it's all the usual. But the hard bit is at what level or to what standard. And we do have some course, and it's really hard for academics to know if they're pitching stuff right. So what we've developed, copying the Australians, is a suite of holistic rubrics. These are like program level rubrics. And we've got one for each capability in the BCom. This is all very BCom centric. And what you can see on each rubric are you've just got critical thinking, but there are the other sets there. Are there indicators of each capability, so how it breaks down, and then an attempt to describe the complexity or scope that you'd expect of students at different levels. So these will all be available on the link in the same place as you can find this, and the web address for that, the link address for that is on the back. So we're getting better. We're trying to map. It's through conversations and very high-level mapping. We're making the value of our course more explicit through the learning out of course outlines. And we're trying to pitch things at a level so that somebody in marketing really is thinking of 200 level courses in a similar way to someone in ISOL, but within their disciplinary context. Now the next thing is, well, crikey, now we know all that, how do we teach it? And there's been a shift. For years and years we've had to have students know the facts and know the theories and do some critical thinking and solve problems, but now we're supposed to be helping students become proactive, independent, ethical. So we've got this shift from students who need to know more to students who need to do more to students who need to be more. And that's cool in some ways because knowledge is really easy to forget and it goes out of date. On the other hand, having principles and being able to take initiative and proactive, they're hard to forget and they last a lifetime, and it doesn't matter what career path people take, they'll be useful. On the other hand, knowledge and theories are somewhat easier to teach, and all this other stuff, the valuable stuff really, is hard to teach. We don't know how. What's happening up there is transformational teaching. It's helping students become more. And what we've done is had a look in the literature, and believe you me, the literature is really complicated. it's really messy. There's two main literatures. There's transformational learning and then learning for transfer. Because remember when we took our degrees, we sat in lectures, learnt a load of stuff and then vomited it onto an exam paper and left it there. And that was okay. Well, now we want our students to actually be useful, so they have to keep that knowledge and then months later deploy it properly. So we need to understand about transfer. Just because someone can do something in the classroom doesn't mean to say they can do it out in the workplace. So we've explored those literatures and tried to develop an intuitive way of expressing the upshot. And this is what we've come up with. If you're going to transform your students, if you're going to help them become more, you need to excite them with their learning. You need to make them passionate about it and hungry. They need to understand it's relevant and they need to be confident that they can achieve it. You need to help them explore concepts and really feel them, not just know about them. And some of this is traditional teaching, but some of it is getting them to feel the concept. So think about the difference between me telling you about disability and then me putting on fuzzy glasses and saying, okay, find your way to the calf. Which one would give you a better understanding of disability? Or me telling you about poverty and then asking you to dress up and go begging, sitting on the street? Which one will enlighten you to the humiliation and the agonies of poverty? After you've got your students excited and motivated, and they've explored concepts in ways that are meaningful to them, if you're going to transform people and they're going to transfer that learning, you need to challenge them. They need to extend their learning. They need to see their learning happening in different contexts. And they need to explore the limits and the boundaries of those concepts. And then finally, if they're going to transfer, they need to exhibit what they know and celebrate what they've achieved. That's transformational learning. And you can contrast this with what's thought of as good teaching in the knowledge domain, which might be, well, you tell them the learning outcomes, don't quite excite them. Then you give them a lecture where they know about, but not feeling anything. And then you ask them to do a reading or complete some mundane exercises that are designed to fit within the 50 minutes that you think they will devote to the thing. And then you assess them and tell them what they did wrong, instead of letting them build an authentic artifact and celebrating what they did right. So this is a huge change for us in the way we think about teaching. But I think that some of this, at least, is going to be necessary if we're going to succeed in delivering these graduate profiles. We all feel so very powerful and so very important. In the next section, after the coffee break, you'll hear, I hope, about some examples of people teaching in some of these ways. And I'm very proud of the efforts we have going on in the business school. There's some fantastic teaching going on. Raj, what would you like to say?
This is really amazing. What are your thoughts on how practical it is to implement this at the level of the university and the faculties and the schools?
I think this is all part of a research project, and it sounds very ambitious, and the way we're doing this research project is by finding small cases of people that have achieved this and sharing them, and it only needs to be small. And it's, that's probably enough. I've only got 5 minutes. I can go on. They're called deviant cases, and we've got, it's a positive deviance. It's all about my trousers again. Sometimes there are really difficult problems and change is really difficult. It's institutionalized and people feel they can't make any change. And there is a method of research and change called positive deviance, finding positive deviance. And it started off with NGOs. And in Vietnam, there was unrest, poverty, lack of education, corruption. And children weren't getting fed right. And endless NGOs had gone in and looked at policy level, looked at this, looked at that, and achieved no change except spent lots of money. And one NGO guy went in and he looked for positive deviance. He looked for this example in somewhere here or somewhere there, where the children weren't starving, where the children were doing well. And what he found was that their mothers were feeding the children frogs, I think, that were growing in the rice fields, and also feeding the children greeneries that other villages just gave to the animals, and their children did well. And he got those mothers to then talk to the mothers in the next village, and the next village, and the next village. And that guy, without any money, without any funding, affected an enormous amount of change. That model has been used in healthcare settings and a little bit in education. And so in this project I'm talking about, we've adopted that technique. So what we're looking at, so if you feel like you're a positive deviant, do let us know, because then we'll be using your cases to promulgate and help other people make these little changes. Do you want your cup of coffee now? How about, I think questions are much better asked with a cup of coffee in your hand. All right, thank you.